why 95% of men over 40 train wrong, and how the top 5% get muscular. When I analyzed training patterns across hundreds of men over 40, one thing was obvious. Almost everyone was doing more of what stopped working years ago. If you're training consistently, eating well, but still losing muscle density, this isn't about effort. The top 5% aren't stronger because they push harder. They've eliminated one silent mistake that drains strength slowly over time. Number 1. Most programs ignore declining recovery margins. I spent months analyzing why the majority of men we see at the club or in the office start to look weathered rather than sculpted, despite their discipline. My research reveals a massive tactical error. Most programs ignore our tightening recovery margins. We often try to outwork our biological clock by stacking more sets and more days, operating under the false belief that volume is the only lever for growth. In reality, what I discovered is that this more is better mindset is exactly what keeps that 5% elite status out of reach. Before we get into the surgical solution, drop your name and where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. What surprised me in the research, particularly from the Journal of Physiology, is that our muscle protein synthesis windows change. They don't just disappear, they require a more surgical approach to stimulus. I've realized that recovery is not a passive break. It is the only time muscle actually grows. As our metabolic flexibility shifts, the gap between hard work and systemic exhaustion narrows significantly. Instead of chasing fatigue, we must utilize a strict minimum effective dose strategy. My analysis shows that by the time we feel destroyed by a workout, we've already overshot the growth signal and started digging a recovery hole we can't climb out of. We want a physique that looks like old money, stable, enduring, and high value, not something built on the shaky foundation of overtraining. For those of us dealing with lingering joint stiffness or history of disc issues, please modify this by swapping high-impact movements for controlled, tempo-based repetitions. This maintains the tension without the systemic tax. Number 2. Top physiques manage stress, not volume. I discovered a massive flaw in how we typically approach a high-pressure day, treating the gym as a dumpster for work stress. We tend to think that hitting a heavy session with maximum intensity will burn off the frustration of a grueling afternoon, but my analysis shows this actually backfires. When we force sheer intensity onto an already taxed system, we aren't building muscle. We are spiking cortisol levels that actively melt away the very physique we're trying to protect. The body is incredibly intelligent, but also indifferent. It does not distinguish between a high-stakes board meeting and a heavy squat session. It only recognizes the total load on the central nervous system. I've realized the elite 5% of men treat their nervous system like a high-yield bank account. You simply cannot withdraw what you haven't deposited. If your mental energy is spent, your physical capacity is already compromised. Instead of the all-out approach, we must transition to a cyclical load model. What surprised me in the research is that staying lean and muscular requires us to match our training stimulus to our current biological bandwidth. On high-stress days, the solution is to focus on mechanical tension with lower reps rather than metabolic stress that leaves you gasping. This preserves the quiet luxury of a strong, composed frame without the haggard look of burnout. For those of us managing high blood pressure or chronic shoulder tightness, modify this by focusing on slow, eccentric contractions rather than explosive lifts to keep the nervous system calm while the muscle stays under tension. Number 3. Muscle loss often starts neurologically. I've spent a significant amount of time investigating why some of us can lift weights for years and still look soft or unathletic. What I discovered is a profound error in the way we view our strength. We focus purely on the size of the muscle while completely ignoring the battery that powers it. We spend our sessions chasing a pump or slow, grinding fatigue, but my analysis shows that the real decay isn't happening in the muscle tissue first. It's happening in the connection between the brain and the fiber. What surprised me in the research regarding sarcopenia is that muscle loss often begins neurologically. We lose our fast-twitch muscle fibers because we simply stop asking the brain to fire them with any sense of urgency. The elite 5% of men stay athletic because they understand that true power is the ability to move a weight with absolute intent, not just surviving the movement until the set is over. We need to stop surviving our workouts and start commanding them. Instead of slow, soul-crushing repetitions, we must prioritize motor unit recruitment through explosive yet highly controlled movements. This is the difference between a refined, responsive physique and one that is just carrying bulk. Wisdom in the gym is knowing that a sharp mind leads to a sharp physique. If the signal from your brain to your muscle is weak, the muscle will follow suit. For those of us with sensitive knees or old tendon issues, please modify this by performing the explosive intent during the lifting phase while keeping the weight moderate. Focus on the speed of the contraction, not the heaviness of the iron. Number 4, consistency without adaptation accelerates stagnation. I've noticed a recurring trap that captures some of the most disciplined men I know, the pride of the reliable routine. We often wear it like a badge of honor, the fact that we've performed the same chest and back circuit for 5 years straight. However, my analysis shows that this static approach is actually a hidden catalyst for stagnation. When we repeat the exact same movement patterns, we aren't building resilience. We are simply deepening joint wear while our metabolism enters a state of total boredom. The body is a sophisticated adaptation machine, and what I discovered in the research is that once your nervous system solves the puzzle of your workout, it stops allocating resources for growth. It becomes too efficient. To remain relevant in your own skin, you must introduce new mechanical challenges that force the body to maintain its youthful problem-solving capabilities. This isn't about chaos, it's about strategic evolution. Instead of the same old barbell lifts, we must utilize variable resistance and strategic exercise rotation. My perspective is that we should rotate our primary movements every 6 to 8 weeks to keep the stimulus fresh. By adding things like resistance bands to traditional lifts or changing the angle of a press, we create a novel stimulus that demands new muscle fiber recruitment. This is the quiet luxury of fitness, having a body that is prepared for anything, not just one specific machine. For those of us dealing with limited shoulder mobility or wrist issues, modify this by using neutral grip handles or specialized bars to change the stimulus without aggravating old hotspots. Number 5, elite men reduce chaos, not intensity. I've spent a lot of time observing the frantic energy in most gyms, and my analysis shows a recurring mistake that kills progress: the pursuit of muscle confusion. We see men constantly swapping their exercises based on whatever the latest social media trend dictates, thinking that variety is the key to breaking a plateau. In reality, this constant shifting creates a level of internal chaos that prevents any real mastery. What I discovered is that the elite 5% do the exact opposite. They don't look for more variety, they look for more precision. The error lies in believing that new equals better. When we constantly change our movements, we never actually get strong enough in one pattern to trigger a significant metabolic shift. My perspective is that high-level fitness is about removing the variables that cause injury so you can safely push the variables that cause growth. We must realize that efficiency is the ultimate form of sophistication. When you remove the fluff of trend chasing, you finally reveal the true architectural frame of your physique. Instead of chasing novelty, we must master the biomechanical standard. This means picking the most effective movements for our specific frame and refining them until the form is second nature. Once the movement is mastered, the intensity can be dialed up without the risk of a setback. For those of us navigating old sports injuries or minor structural imbalances, modify this by using fixed path machines for your heaviest sets. This allows you to exert maximum force while the machine handles the stability and giving you the intensity you need without the chaotic risk to your joints. Bonus point: training less frequently often produces more muscle. I've spent years deconstructing the more is better fallacy that seems to be hardwired into our collective psyche. We've been conditioned to believe that 5 or 6 days in the gym is objectively superior to 3. But my analysis shows this is precisely where most men hit a wall. When we are balancing high-level careers and family responsibilities, our systemic bucket of recovery is already nearly full. What I discovered is that adding 5 days of lifting on top of that doesn't create growth. It creates a hormonal stalemate where your body is too busy surviving to actually build new tissue. What surprised me in the research, particularly data from the National Strength and Conditioning Association, is that for men with established lives, 3 high-intensity sessions often significantly outperform 5 moderate ones. This isn't about being lazy, it's about a high-frequency recovery schedule. By training only 3 days a week, you allow your hormonal profile, specifically your testosterone to cortisol ratio, to actually reset and peak. My perspective is that this is the ultimate old money approach to fitness, being more powerful in the specific moments you choose to show up rather than being perpetually exhausted. We want to be the man who enters the room with a presence of vitality, not the one who looks like he's dragging himself through his third leg day of the week. For those of us who find it hard to sit still, modify this off time by engaging in low-intensity Zone 2 walks. This keeps the blood flowing and the joints lubricated without tapping into the central nervous system reserves required for your heavy lifting days. Recap. Remember at the start, I mentioned that only 5% of men manage to stay truly athletic as the years pass. Now you know why. We've unmasked the reality that chasing volume is a young man's game, while managing stress and neurological intent is where the real mastery lies. We've realized that our recovery is the actual growth phase, and that 3 days of surgical precision will always beat 5 days of mindless grinding. It's about being an adaptation machine, not a creature of habit. We have to understand that being 40, 50, or beyond isn't a disadvantage. It's our edge. We have the perspective to stop chasing trends and start chasing results. This is what we talk about on this channel, building a physique that reflects the caliber of the man inside. If that's useful to you, subscribe. I post weekly about the intersection of high-level performance and biological longevity. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive. We aren't just working out anymore. We're architecting a legacy. You're not too old. Most men just quit too early. Don't be like most men. Feel free to suggest a topic you would like to watch next in the comment section. We will notify you once it's posted. And if you want to dive deeper into how we can optimize our hormone profile through movement, check out this video next.